How long do they dream for?
3, 4 hours each day.
And dream time?
With this compound, about 40 hours each and every day.
Why do they do it?
Tell him, Mr. Carl.
After a while, it becomes the only way you can dream.
They come here every day to sleep.
No. They come to be woken up. The dream has become their reality. Who are you to say otherwise?
You've landed on The Substance, a podcast aimed at being biblical, thoughtful, and human. Join us each week as we engage the culture without the culture war. My name is Vincent Edwards, and I am here with my friends and co-hosts Trevor Aiken.
Howdy, y'all.
And Philip Marinello.
Hey, everybody.
And we just want to quickly say welcome to any newcomers who are listening for the first time on this episode. We appreciate you clicking on us. We are a Christian variety show, but we talk a lot more. Just anything that's going on in Christendom or anything that is going on in culture. And so we just love the fact that you're with us, and welcome to anybody who's come back.
Yeah, like Vince was saying, we do a lot of different types of shows. We do long form, we do short form, we do books, movies. This is one of our substantive cinema shows here. And joining us is a returning guest and friend of the show and a PhD student here as well, Mitch Wiley.
Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back.
Thank you all.
Dude, how's the studying going? You reading like tons of books or something right now?
Yes. Well, the semester just started back up, so there's a little bit of a break there for a while, but hitting the books again. Not watching as many movies as I could in the summer.
I don't want to hear any complaints. You don't have children. I've seen your Letterboxd
Hey,
account.
man,
Yeah.
Don't throw shade.
It's
it's
busy.
It's good. I'm just saying, enjoy it.
We're soaking that up as long as we can. We have a dog, and that's enough for now.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, Trev, this has been one that you have been lobbying for
so
forever.
pumped.
Why don't you introduce the show? And spoiler warning, obviously, for this 11-year-old movie.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of does feel funny given spoilers for Inception, though. I think we'll be able to talk about some things that maybe people haven't heard before. I was thinking about the elevator pitch for this movie in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Nolan almost used the heist genre to explore the dangers and opportunities presented by dreams and ideas.
Okay, that's fair. What does IMDb say? A thief who steals corporate secrets through the use of dream-sharing technology is given the inverse task of planting an idea in the mind of a CEO. That's a terrible elevator pitch. Yours was much better.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate that. I'll get in touch with the IMDb's people and just be like, hey,
You need to do
update
better.
your description, get on my level. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it really does have that feel of a heist movie. You know, you kind of getting the crew together, and then you've got the one big job and
The one last job.
yeah, the one last job.
And then he's out.
Which is a heist movie trope.
Exactly. Or back in this case.
No.
Exactly.
Cobb definitely wants out. He wants to be with his family.
But yeah, I mean, in the country.
Oh, that's a very good joke.
It was just an observation, but it becomes funny the more we laugh at it.
And I also think it's cool. Like Chris Nolan, we talked about this a little bit, I think, with Interstellar.
Mhm.
Chris Nolan is pretty much the only blockbuster auteur director of our time. He got $150+ million movie about dreams greenlit with no problems. Like,
It's amazing.
even though I'm probably going to be the biggest wet blanket on this movie, I don't dislike it, but I do, as a movie lover, I love what Chris Nolan is doing. I love that he is out there pushing boundaries, and like the man gets a $160 movie about dreams green. Like, that's exciting. Like an original idea that is big and daring and like really goes for it. Like, that's what we need, whether they're all awesome or not.
So let me lay down some of the key concepts in this movie and like some of the plot. So basically you have, like Philip read from IMDb, this guy who steals ideas by this technology called dream sharing, and basically it's exactly what it sounds like. People go to sleep.
I love how they give no
Yeah.
Like they don't explain it all.
just
Like, it's a
exists.
box. We don't even plug it. Like
Yeah.
it's a thing,
That
and it
tube
does
goes
it.
on your
It
wrist,
just does it.
and now you are in the same dream together.
Right.
I love how they didn't worry about that.
I did too. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm like, they're just you could poke so many holes in so much of this, but that's not the point, and it's fun without it. Yeah, and so basically, we find out through the movie more and more about why he's in the situation he's in, but we know he's separated from his family, wants to get back from them,
His children.
Yeah. And we learn along the way that kind of the specter of his wife who has passed is haunting his dreams.
Yeah, we got another Chris Nolan dead wife situation.
Yeah, that seems to be pretty common in Chris Nolan movies.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just saying, Interstellar,
Memento.
Prestige.
He needs to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Chris Nolan, if you want to come and have an episode on
dealing with grief.
And since we're there now, I shared the picture with Trevor. I don't know if I can. I don't have it on my laptop here, but like in this movie particularly, like Leonardo DiCaprio has a striking resemblance to Chris Nolan. It's like this movie is about Chris Nolan, the guy who works in dreams as a movie. Like this is about Christopher Nolan.
Oh, jeez.
Main character Chris Nolan, directed by Chris Nolan, written by Chris Nolan. That's funny, man. You said in text message off of the podcast that you wanted to explore that idea too, of like how much was Chris Nolan putting himself in this character Dom, and I'm really interested to hear more about that as well. But yeah, throughout the movie, Dom keeps explaining that he knows that this idea of Inception, instead of stealing an idea, planning one, making someone have an idea that they believe is their own, even though you put it there, is possible. He knows it's possible because he's done it before. And slowly as the movie progresses, spoiler alerts, we find out that the reason he knows this is possible because the person he has planted an idea in before was his wife. And the idea he planted was because they were stuck. They're just like...
She was like addicted to the dreams, kind of.
Yeah,
he was trying to get her out of it.
Like the limbo space of dreams. We'll get into all the dream whatever here in a minute.
She really loved being like a SimCity dream escaper. And he's like, all right, honey, like you need to come back to reality.
Yeah. And so he planted the idea, my world isn't real, in her mind. But the problem was that when she got out of the dream, she still had that idea. And it led her to kill herself because the way you know, just like, and this is one of the things I love about this movie is so much of what he says about dreams really accords with like a lot of people's experience with dreaming. Mm-hmm. You never die in your dream. You know, if you're about to die in your dream or you get to that point where you die in your dream, you wake up.
Yep.
Like, I don't know about you guys, but that's how I experience my dreams. Like, so it's just interesting that boundary that your mind can't comprehend of death. So, but it wakes you up, and that's what happens in the movie. So she's thinking she's in a dream. She wants to wake herself up, but instead kills herself. But she's thinking that her husband's the one who's crazy, so sets him up, and basically he's screwed.
So to that point, zooming out, like going out of the film, talking like about it as a movie experience, for me, this is probably the, I don't know, 5th or so time I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
First time I got all that. Like that was my theory. Like they say that explicitly at the end.
Right.
But like each time before, I was watching it to experience it rather than watching it to analyze it and understand it. I paused prolifically this viewing. I had my notepad, and like it's actually, I won't say simple, but it's not a difficult to understand movie if you like take notes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, this is all there. Like, but I am not a dummy. I'm a big fan of movies. I saw it twice in the theater and then a number of times at home and with friends. And like, this was always my theory. I was like, I think that's what happened. But I'm like, oh no,
yeah.
I watched it the other day and today. I was like, no, they explicitly say exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's such, I don't know, that's an interesting phenomena in and of itself. Like a Chris Nolan movie is made to be experienced. Like it gives you a unique experience. And even when processing the film, I'm like, didn't love that. I've never not enjoyed the ride.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Trevor, you love this movie, right, Trev?
Dude, yes.
It's one of your tops.
Yeah, I love this movie.
Maybe you can go on Mitch's new podcast and talk about that sometime.
Yeah, we'll take you.
So my take, after I finished it and took my notes, I was like, my take on Inception currently is that it's a unnecessarily complicated but technically super impressive movie that's kind of navel-gazy. That's really just a tragedy about the power of idea. Like, it's a tragedy.
Is it a tragedy?
I would say so, yes.
I did have that question. So I had two questions about your synopsis you sent to me. One was navel-gazy and two was tragedy.
Okay. Navel-gazy is Chris Nolan is a storyteller and a creator and a filmmaker, and the movie is a $160 project about storytelling and dream creation. So that's a little navel-gazy. Not bad, but he's like, he is the protagonist in his own movie about creation.
I think it's oversimplification to say it's a movie about storytelling or a story about storytelling. I think
creation. How about that?
I mean,
the
they
power
say
of
that, right?
element creation.
But I so like in the summary that I gave earlier, like the dangers and opportunities presented by ideas. Like I think it really does showcase both.
So I think technically you're not wrong, but where I get tragedy is
okay. Give me with tragedy.
Let's do yours first. No, let me answer your question first.
Yeah,
the power of ideas. The only thing positively that happens is like corporate espionage to break up a monopoly, which I guess is not bad, but like there's not a whole lot of here's the positive implications of these things other than like power companies monopoly is broken up a little bit, which again I guess
was
is
vanilla.
good.
That whole thing's vanilla. I thought about that. Like he kind of wrote that vanilla on purpose because.
But you said like there's not what in the movie is like. Here's what's good about this.
Well, I think when it talks about the mind space and what you can do, right? Remember, like Ariadne, she is drawn back. Like there's this point in the movie where she leaves because Dom is so screwed up and like hiding everything from everybody. And also, like, let's explore the fact that we don't have to spend a long time on this, but a college student is just basically like, hey, this guy has a job for you. And his job pitch is like, it's not strictly legal.
Yeah, it's not exactly
like,
legal.
Okay.
Like, if someone came to me in college, I'd be like, tell me more.
You would. So Ariadne is probably a 7. Got it.
No, doubt it.
No, not at all.
But 5. But we may not love the rules. The same.
But my point is, there's this point in that where she walks away, right? Because that's probably the smart.
She's like, you're lying to people, and you have like a glitch in this thing that is scuttling everything.
But Dom predicts she will be back. And why? Because she can't, like, the dream state exists, the power, like the raw power of imagination.
Well, yeah, like crystal meth is the same way. I think the tragedy is the central character, Cobb, is a man who lost himself so much and brought his wife into this so much that, like, she killed herself. And he eventually went through great pains to, like, make it as good as he could, sort of. And then he does get to see his kids, but he also caused their mom to kill herself. Like, it's not the worst it could possibly be, but I don't see it as like, oh, this is a positive film.
But see, here's why I don't think that description of a tragedy actually fits, though, because what you're describing is where the film starts. The film starts with all of those things having already happened. The film ends with him achieving the thing that he thought was impossible, which was getting back with his family. If you believe that he actually did and he's not still in the dream state, we'll talk about that.
Do.
But like,
I'll say I believe the end is in reality,
right?
But like Ken Watanabe does some shadiness with one phone call, kind of weirdly, which is my other problem of the movie is him and Ken Watanabe. But like, I feel like the redemption, if you could call it that, is quite hollow. He subverts the legal system to get with his kids, who he made their mother kill herself. Like, that's the end of the movie.
I think man, through tragic circumstances, is separated from his family, but through heroic effort gets back with them, is fundamentally not a tragedy.
I'm happy. I think it's reality at the end, and I'm happy he's with his kids.
Yeah.
But like
there's a lot of sad circumstances surrounding his life, but he overcomes those in a way.
Through illegal, and I don't know. I don't have any moral problems with the movie, but the movie doesn't, at the end, like, it's as good of a feeling as you can have, but I don't leave going awesome.
that's why Chris Nolan wrote it as like these big corporations with this dumb corporate struggle that like isn't really like, he doesn't spend a lot of time like explaining the justice or injustice of that. And I think it's because he knows this is just a vanilla backdrop. It's not about the corporations, not about any of these things. It's about ideas and minds and what you can do with them. And like we needed some way to tell this story. And so like the corporate struggle is just literally a prop to make the rest of the story work. He doesn't really want you to worry about whether or not what they were doing with this guy was harming him or anything like that. Like if you felt like they were harming him along the way, you would not be able to root for the characters, right? And so like that's why he just kind of lets that part take the backdrop, I think. And he doesn't answer any of these questions that you're asking around the corporation or anything like that, because it's not about that.
No. And I didn't have any. So I'll say one thing, and I want Vince and Mitch to jump in here a little. So I agree. The corporate espionage that's not the A or B story. That's not the most important thing. And it is all about the ideas. This is my pushback to Trevor initially. Why is this a substantive film? What is the substance of this film?
I'll let Vince and or Mitch ride on that one.
Go ahead, Mitch. Take a stab at it.
So I guess part of the question is like, what is this movie about? And like, what does it want us to think? And I think if anything, it's about like guilt and grief. Mm-hmm. And I think that's, the heartbeat of the film is there's a man who lost his wife. He feels the responsibility and the guilt of that. And he's grieving and he needs to confront that.
Yeah.
And I think that is what Ariadne is there to help him see is, look, what this whole thing is, it's showing your grief and it's unprocessed and you are still holding on to a person who's not alive anymore. And it's the team coming together. And I have some kind of theories that I can share a little bit later, maybe about who is actually the one that Inception is being performed on.
Interesting.
Ooh.
But I think this, okay, I can go there right now, actually.
Hold on. So instead of going to therapy to process his grief, he charges Warner Brothers $160 million.
Why do you even bring in the therapy into this, though? Like, and that's the thing. Like, that's why. All right, I'll say this is why it's not a tragedy, though, because he does that. Like, at the end of the movie, to get this job done, he has to confront Maul. He has to confront his projection. He does so, right? And so he has a redemption arc.
Well,
I agree with that.
And that's true.
He does have
things are either true or false, Philip. We say that's on the podcast all the time.
And I guess it's better that he's not the one that killed her, too. She stabbed him and then Ariadne shot her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the redemptive elements to the film. I am more probably on Philip's side of things than yours, Trevor, in that I think the movie is fine. I would say it's a good movie. I don't think it's probably as good as, it's like, here. Gosh, it's like IMDb's top 250 or whatever. It's like top 10, top 15.
It's high up there. But that's also what people rate it as far as entertainment.
Yeah. And I think that the visuals are really cool and it's an original idea, which doesn't come around all that often. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's just say, too, what Philip already mentioned, it's an intellectually stimulating movie. Like, it's a stretch.
It's substantive in that way. Like, the fact that there's so much for us to talk about, I think is a huge asset. Like, I don't think the film is completely unsubstantive. Like, I'm being a teeny bit belligerent. I think that it's like $160 million, 2.5 hour lecture versus a film. Like, when I go see a film, like, I don't know. Because I feel like it's like, so Mitch and I both ranked the 11 movies of Chris Nolan from our favorite to least favorite. We both have Inception at number 8.
Yeah.
So not towards the top. Mitch, why is it at number 8 for you?
I think that
because he made 7 better movies.
Yeah. There are 7 others I like more.
That's the bumper there at the end.
So I think that the emotional core of the movie I don't find extremely compelling.
What is the emotional core of the movie? He feels bad about making his wife kill herself?
Yeah. Yes.
No, I feel that.
The only time I felt like kind of my heart kind of
let's talk about
kind of swell a little bit is there's it's probably 2 seconds long. You see him and Maul walking as elderly people together, And
That was
that's the
50 years.
and that's the only time I really felt very emotionally connected to Cobb's plight, I guess.
Did any of you guys get any emotions, Trevor, events during the movie?
Yeah, I felt a few things. I mean, one, obviously excitement. I thought with the story, like you guys said, was pretty simple. But the execution of that story was pretty awesome. And like you said, it was original. It was different. It wasn't common or repackaged from something else that we had already seen or read. So I think that execution was good. And so obviously excitement's going to be the big thing. But obviously curiosity is going to be one, because that's like, I remember being in school after that movie premiered, and a lot of us watched it, and we were talking particularly about the end. Of whether or not he was actually in the dream.
Sure.
Because you don't see the totem actually fall, even though it looks like
if that's the totem.
Yeah. Even though it looks like it's going to topple.
No, if the top is actually his totem.
Right. And so there's curiosity and excitement surrounding that curiosity. And then honestly, it wasn't a very dense story, but to me, it really didn't need to be, because it's like, I relate with grief.
Sure.
If I feel that if I have felt that I was responsible for somebody else doing something, and even though I did not perform that action, at the end of the day, the action was not carried out by me, to even feel remotely responsible for somebody else's idea and the action that they took, it weighs heavy. And you can see how deep that burrowed in him, because the more they went down into these dreams, like the more intense these scenarios got, and it shows you how deep grief can go. Mm-hmm. And so it to me, it gave the feeling of a bit of relatability. I've never convinced anyone to kill themselves, to my knowledge.
That's good to know.
But I have been responsible for, saying something, and then somebody's taking an action that, they made a mistake in their life, and it's like, dang, that sucks, because I feel a little bit responsible for that.
I see.
And he blows that up into a much deeper and more profound way. So I think even though it was a simple story, I think it had deep impact, depending obviously on your vantage point.
I'll list quickly the two emotional moments for me. One was, and the biggest one was seeing the kids' faces at the very end.
That was one of mine.
That was a key element, and just having kids, it just makes everything more emotional around kids. And then two was just the mall scene where she jumps off the ledge.
Yes. Oh gosh,
that's brutal.
At the end, where you actually see her go out, like the suite.
Yeah. That
was pretty gut wrenching.
Yeah. So
the biggest gut punch for me is the daddy issues, as always. Like when Tom Hardy put the pinwheel in the safe.
Yes, I almost lost it there too. Yeah.
So I didn't really feel the kids gave me a tiny tinge, but like by far my biggest emotional reaction was when Cillian Murphy, I forget his name, Ames is Tom Hardy. When Cillian Murphy pulls out the pinwheel of his dad's safe, and he's like, I'm not disappointed that you were failing to live up to me. Like, I'm disappointed that you're trying to be me. Like, you go live your life. And I was like, that like started to get me.
Nice.
And then I was like, it's the pinwheel from the picture. Like when he was like his one cherished moment, because he's like, my relationship with my dad was whatever. And I was like, I can relate to that. And then the pinwheel from the nice day at the fair or whatever, when he was a kid, I was like, that kind of got me a little bit.
Yeah.
Such a good, so good. So Vince, help us out too with this. So like, we've had the cinephiles kind of talk about whatever cinephile stuff, but you also talked about how you love this film. Like, you said somehow how it emotionally connects, but why else is this really high up on your list?
Honestly, I've been a fan of Leonardo DiCaprio as an actor for a while. So I often enjoy his performance in movies, even though it's a bit of uniformity in some movies.
Watch yourself there, Vince.
Just a couple where it's like, it's look like the same character from that other movie. But overall, I mean, I really enjoy Leonardo's films. And then I think I love the dynamic between Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Tom Hardy. That was funny
Fantastic.
to me. And
So
I
good.
enjoy Tom Hardy as well. So I think because
One of
it
my
was a
favorite
really
characters in the movie.
star-studded cast, it was, and like I said, the execution of that movie, because it was an original idea. I mean, there have been movies about dreams. I think Dennis Quaid was in one like back in the 70s, I think. And it was pretty good, but it wasn't Inception. And so it's not like the idea of having a movie about a dream and you being able to interact with that is new, but it was just executed in such a way where it's like I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. I love action movies, so the amount of action and just
amazing set pieces. Absolutely
oh my goodness,
incredible.
it was great. And then especially in the areas where I talked about areas that connected. And even though they incepted the idea, kind of like what you were talking about, Phil, about like coming to peace with the final words of his father, they incepted that idea. Yeah, I get that for the whole corporate thing. But at the same time, take the corporation stuff out of it. They helped a man come to peace with
Process
a very
his grief.
toxic relationship
Oh shoot.
with his father,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a good thing. That
I
was
feel like that's
amazing.
almost better than Cobb's arc.
So Mitch, talk to us. I think that's a really great lead in into like how many cases of Inception are going on in this movie, because it feels like now I'm starting to see like there's actually a lot of Inception happening here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a big question. I mean, I'm thinking about like, that moment where the train is coming in through the dream and Ariadne is trying to convince Cobb, showing him his faults of you haven't processed this. Why are you continuing to, Ariadne's character is trying to convince him the entire time. It almost feels like she's trying to pull an Inception on him. And by saying like, look, you need to get rid of Maul. You need to stop doing this. You need to stop living in the past. You need to come back to reality. And Saito's character giving him an out to where he can return home. So part of me wonders, and I'm not sure how popular of a fan theory this is. I know I'm not the first to come up with this, but I wonder if it's Michael Caine who is the architect of trying to get DiCaprio, Cobb, to come home, which he does at the end.
He's DiCaprio's father-in-law in the film.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right.
So you think he's trying to incept the idea that I need to come home, I need to accept reality into Cobb?
Yeah. yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I hadn't seen before just now the parallels of like Fisher is processing the loss. There's two people processing a loss here. Fisher processing the loss of his father and Cobb processing the loss of Maul.
Mm-hmm.
True.
And like the parallels between those needs to process that grief and understand life going forward. I hadn't thought about that yet. And we haven't even talked about the fact that there's literally 4 layers of story going on in this movie.
Well, and if you look at the characters,
is what it's known for.
And in that perspective, like thinking about it this time and what you just said, Trev, like you have a character who is like a thief and an outlaw. Trust fund kids are not usually terribly empathetic in popular culture and film.
Right.
But he didn't choose to be born into that. He had a hard life. He had coldness and not love. His dad was a titan in business.
Yeah.
He gave him no love or affirmation. Like he's kind of more sympathetic than a thief who's out there.
I don't think you need the comparative. I think Nolan did a really good job at making this guy who, in pop culture,
like low key,
wouldn't be a sympathetic character. But
I've seen the movie several times. I never even considered Cillian Murphy all that integral until this viewing.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good insight.
So before we go into the 4 layers, there's one quote that I wrote down. I only wrote down 2 quotes, I think. One of them is where they go to see the chemist guy. I forget which country he was in. And then they go downstairs to where the people come to dream every day.
Yes.
And he's like, all these people come down here to dream. He says that they come to wake up because the dream, like they're living in the dream reality and they come actually to be waking up. I thought that was an interesting.
And he asked,
I felt like he was trying to comment on something.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe like pop culture, like how we engage with our own inner mythologies or the mythologies that we enjoy for ourselves. Like,
well, he said like the dream has become their reality, and he asks a question. And I think the question that's asked at that moment is actually directed at the audience, which is, who are you to say any different? Mm-hmm. It's getting at this dream hypothesis idea where, when we enter into a dream, in that moment, it feels real. And we process being awake and what our reality is here. But when you're asleep, you process reality kind of in the same way. Now, there's some things that we can perceive and say, yeah, that's probably a dream. But if you're really
real, man,
if you had something where somebody was just really stuck in that and could create at these levels that these people do, like, yeah, this is a thing that they explore, like what actually is reality. And because dreaming exists, it does raise the question of, is reality as we perceive it itself a dream?
Sure.
Is dying in this life actually waking up? And I think you could get into even theological, theological explorations of that
this time.
And I think that's what they're asking at that moment. How can you, at like standing where you're standing, actually say this is the reality or not? And I think from a presuppositional point of view, like from the human perspective, you actually don't have the authority to say that. Like you would need a transcendental authority outside of those things to be able to say, no, this in fact is reality. This in fact is dreams.
Because if experience is all you have, and even in the film, one's experience can be at the whim of other people who know how to control processes that you're not able to control and things like that. Like it's a really good discussion fodder for like college philosophy classrooms or stoners.
Or stoners.
or the Substance Podcast.
Or the Substance Podcast. I did think it was really funny. I'm pretty sure, like, this is not a nitpick. I really only have one and a half actual nitpicks that we can talk about at the end. I'm pretty sure that, like, it was just a little unclear when they were in the dream. It seems like I thought at first that whoever's dream they were in was kind of in charge.
Yes.
But it seems also at multiple times anybody who is conscious that it is a dream can kind of do anything. Tom Hardy materializes a grenade launcher. And the thing that made me laugh, not super hard, but like pretty good this time, like it started raining in the van reality because the chemist had to pee. I was like,
I love that.
That was funny.
Like, what are the rules of it? It wasn't of story, like suspension of disbelief. I'm like, whatever. And when he made a grenade launcher appear and he's like, you're dreaming too little. Or you got to dream a little bigger.
Need to dream a little bigger, darling.
Tom Hardy was awesome. He won the movie for me this time.
So good.
He was phenomenal.
You've never had that, like, where you, like, for whatever reason you're dreaming, you really had to, like, go to the restroom or whatever, like it's like raining or whatever, it's stormy in your dream?
I've never had that.
I barely even remember my dreams. Do you all even remember your dreams?
I used to for about like 10 minutes, and I was always afraid to write them down because the ones I remembered the most were very strange, and I'm like, I don't want this to be analyzed by anyone ever.
I think I only remember the dreams that are either really intense, because I still remember dreams from like when I was a kid, but only if they were like intense, like something was going on that I really did not want to happen. And then I will remember those. And then the ones I enjoy, I never remember.
Right.
So it's like, oh man, I was, at having a picnic and it was just lovely weather or whatever. I've never had that dream. I'm just saying.
I was like, that's a very relaxing dream. Yeah, I only remember 2 dreams from my childhood. I don't really remember dreams.
Yeah, the only thing I could remember, this is one time I had some crazy dream. Usually I'm getting like the ones I remember, I'm like getting chased by something, but or like I'm in danger, and I had a dream like that was like super intense, and I woke up because it was so intense. But then this was the only time I ever remembered being able to do this, but I was able to like go back in the dream and like kick whatever thing's butt.
I remember you telling me about that. I thought that was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lucid dreaming.
Yeah, like I had enough, kind of like in the movie, like I knew it was a dream. And since I knew it was a dream,
I'm in charge.
Dreams
now.
do this. Like if dreams, so there's this part in the movie where they talk about how you perceive and create reality in a circle.
Yes.
The thing that you create, like your mind perceives something that also creates something. So like this happens to me all the time in dreams, where something I'll perceive in the dream for whatever reason, I'll sense as dangerous. And okay, so like a dream I had recently, I was driving a van for some reason, and like I was backing up the van, and the thought comes to my head, I gotta do, back up correctly. I'm driving a bigger car than I normally drive, and so I need to not hit something. Okay, so that creates the reality next that I hit something, right? And then I'm like, shoot, now I gotta back up like carefully, and then I like backed into like a river. My kids were in the back, and like kids were, yeah. So like it was that whole thing they talk about, like perceiving and creating reality at once. Like that's what dreaming is like for me, for sure. Like the thing that you think about creates the reality. So much. That was one of the first things that really drove me to it. Is like everything that they're talking about dreams, like just feels so real. Like, yeah, that is what dreams are like.
It wasn't like, obviously like there's elements research to it where it's probably, just for the movie itself.
Sure.
But I think there are concepts, or at least the concepts that are taken to the dream. I think that's also what makes it so relatable, is because you can't say at least once all of these things to some degree hasn't happened. Because no one else is in your dream. We don't do dream sharing today at all, and yet our minds fill up the world around us, and like we could be walking on the street and there's tons of people around. It's like, where did they come from?
And if they all look at us at once, we're gonna crap our pants.
Well, they're not gonna attack me if it's my dream, so it's fine.
That's right. It's just a projection of his subconscious, so he's fine.
What about you, Mitch? What dreams do you remember? And is the movie kind of, would you agree that the movie kind of accurately describes that?
Yeah, I think the few dreams I remember is if I get woken up suddenly by something and I'm like in the middle of a dream, I'll remember what it was, or something like that. But I think that, it's an interesting, I appreciate that the sentiment, it feels real when you're in it, definitely applies to dreams. I think it would be interesting to compare this to like something like David Lynch films and how the two differ on how they portray, which they differ quite a bit, dreamlike states, because I don't think it captured the weirdness of dreams as well as something like David Lynch or somebody else like that.
Well, because again, it was some of my problem with Interstellar. I like Interstellar more now after seeing them both recently and comparing them. Like Chris Nolan is so like clinical. I came close to feeling something, like I said, with the pinwheel and with the seeing the kids' faces, but like there's not much. Like he's more an idea guy, the head guy, than a heart guy. Certainly in the head triad. Yeah, Trev?
Yep.
I think that resonates. And like we've already said, like this movie, the way that they describe dreams kind of rang true was like the time dilation aspect, where like you go to sleep and you're like, man, I was sleeping forever. And you look at the clock and you're like, oh, dang, like that was 20 minutes.
I did so much.
It's like I did on a nap. Holy cow. So they do this like dream within a dream. So like at one point in the movie, the main characters are in an airplane going across the Pacific or whatever.
That's reality.
Yep. Then dreaming that they're in New York City or something in a van where the dudes have been kidnapped. Then they're in a dream in there where they're in this hotel that was constructed to like keep things at bay for a little bit. And then they're in a dream in there where they're in this like snow compound. And then there's actually a point where they fall down to the limbo state that Maul and Dom had constructed. So like you literally at one point in the movie have people at 5 different settings, 5 different scenes, 5 different timelines, all going on in parallel, and they like interrelate. And I think just that is amazing. Like the way that he kept all that straight and walks you through it, like is just mind blowing. Like it's so good.
It's so clean too. It's not messy.
So good. Yeah. It's one of those movies that requires you to pay attention, and I love movies like that. And if you pay close attention, even on the first viewing, you could keep it all straight and really know what was going on. Like I heard a lot of people for whom it was very difficult to do so and needed multiple viewings.
I did for sure.
But I think it is possible that if you really were into it.
It's really like actually, because the movie sweeps you up in all of this awe that you don't realize that he's telling you exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's the magician telling you the trick as he's doing it. But like you're so in awe of the trick that you're like, I need to watch that 2 or 3 more times.
He should make a movie about magicians.
See, that's another one where Trevor and I differ. I love The Prestige.
Oh,
that's actually a film I like a whole lot.
Yeah.
That was good.
So Trevor, talk about totems here.
It's very intentional. Nolan writes the film so that it leaves it open to interpretation of the viewer. Did the film end up with him in reality or him in the dream state?
Mm-hmm.
And he wants you to ask that question. Now, I think he answers the question, and he's very intentional about doing that. But I think he also is sly about it. Like, he wants to deceive the viewer into, and it's intentionally written that way. So,
trying to make that budget back. Come back 3 or 4 more times.
Yeah, so there's this thing about totems in the film where this person has an object that helps them know for sure that they're not in somebody else's dream.
So they're not in someone else's dream.
Right.
Not their own dream. I caught that. I originally thought totems was just like your totem lets you know that you're in a dream, but it's that you're not in someone else's.
Right. And the idea is because it has some unique property that somebody else can't replicate.
Yeah,
right?
That an architect doesn't know, because they talk about that, like architects get little things wrong, like the
carpet,
the rug,
like the carpet. Yeah.
So only you know what your totem is.
Exactly. So the totem that he uses supposedly throughout the film is this top. But what's funny about it is as the film goes on, so he deceives us into believing that this totem is like the yes and no on whether or not he's in reality. But actually, we know that 1, it's not his, it's Maul's, and 2, it's already been tampered with, and 3, that it really couldn't prove anything because anybody could make a topple, in a dream state, right? People would know that you could create a physics for a top that it would topple. So it really can't prove that to him. I think it's an interesting question on why he keeps it around, and maybe he does it just so that Chris Nolan can deceive viewers. But what's very interesting is the ring on Dom's left hand is a very intentional plot point throughout the entire film. And it was only on this last viewing that I really saw it. Like, I'd heard a rumor about this. But if you watch the film specifically looking for Dom's left hand, there are very sly camera angles that are employed throughout the entire film to reveal it or conceal it at certain points. But
that the wedding ring is his true totem.
But at every point when he's in the dream state, he is wearing his wedding ring. And at every point that he is in the awakened state, he is not wearing it.
Yeah.
And why? Like you asked that question to me when I explained that to you, why? And I think it goes back to what Mitch said earlier. It is a symbol of the guilt he carries with him.
Yeah.
Because the dream, his guilt, just like the train, it breaks through and he can't control it. Mm-hmm. Like he has, and so that's why he doesn't need any other totem, because this one is stuck to him. He can't control.
It's literally the memory of the woman whose life he destroyed.
Right. And so this stuff just breaks into whatever dream space he's in. And when he's out of the dream space, he doesn't have it because of all those reasons too. And so in the end, there's actually, so when he's passing immigration, there is a clear shot because he uses his left hand to hand out the ticket of him without the ring on. So he's in the awakened state. From there, you don't see his left hand after that point. So in theory, could the
kind of sort of do when he walks into the house with Michael Caine. I was checking.
Yeah.
I definitely buy that. That's a theory that I caught relatively early on.
If you're listening to this and you have the movie, go back and it's insane. Like the level of detail, writing 5 storylines, and then to pay attention to something as minute is this character has to wear a ring in these scenes and not in these scenes, and get it right throughout the entire film and shoot it in such a way that we're cleverly concealing or revealing this to the audience, which they very clearly do intentionally. Like if you watch for it, is unreal. It's amazing.
Well, and that I will undisputedly
technically
Chris Nolan is a genius, and in some ways, I really love his films, but in some ways, he's kind of like Kubrick in that they leave me just kind of
amazing.
Clinical's the right word. Sterile and clinical is the right word. Yeah.
He's not quite as sterile as
he's not a warm
Kubrick,
filmmaker.
No.
It's not like Terrence Malick, hey, everything's going to be in poetry.
Well, no, not even that.
It's like a really well-written physics paper. It's just freaking beautiful.
Part of it's humor. Part of it is his movies are not funny I mean, Eames provided
There's
us
funny
with some
parts, yeah.
some humor.
It's
but
funny in the ways it needs to be. It's like every
I think
single
it's
one
funny
of these
because
is
of
just
Tom
the right
Hardy,
amount.
not because of the script.
You're
but
right.
like every
You're
single
exactly
thing
right.
is
It was a
just the right
funny
amount. Like it
movie.
has an emotional point where it needs to have. Like we can point to them, and like humor, we could point to jokes. Like it's
Can we
just
point
not
to
over
another
the top
joke?
about any of those things.
Can we point to another joke besides the grenade launcher?
I think when Eames is as a woman is supposed to be
That was a little funny.
That's funny.
Yeah, Tom Hardy was good. Tom Hardy was very, very good.
So, Trevor, you read the ending as he's alive, he's in normal world.
Yeah, I think because of the ring plot point, he is communicated to the audience that yes, at least at the point where he passes immigration, you can say for sure he's in the wakened state. Now, technically when he goes to the house, that's the next scene, and you don't have confirmation either way.
Yeah,
but
there's no clue that between the airport and the house that he was abducted in the dream state again.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say yeah. I think that's what the movie communicates.
Yeah. I think if you asked Nolan, he probably would say it doesn't matter. Because the heart of the story...
Which is also irritating.
Yeah. Well, the heart of the story is that Cobb has processed his grief and he's gone home. So whether he's done that internally or if he's doing that in reality doesn't matter. It's that his character has grown.
It's just sly of him to say that when he like literally wrote an answer into the film.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, literally, if you watch it for it, like it's so intentional. Like, there's no way that you could get that detail right at that level with those camera shots and not like literally have directed it that way. And so it's just kind of, I think he wants to be sly, like the whole like fake totem thing, and then
the top spinning at the end,
and like he wants that, and of course, so like he's gonna preserve that in his interviews. He's not gonna give it away, but like there's definitely an answer in the film.
Yeah, I think the twist and the magic trick of the Prestige is much more fun in terms of like going back and rewatching.
Well, and that's about two men who were friends who became rivals. Like that has an emotional core where like Cobb is so kind of one-dimensional. Mal's a much more interesting character than Cobb, I think. In this viewing, I thought Marion Cotillard was great.
Well, and I think it has the emotion of like an Ocean's 13. Like it's a heist movie. Like it's kind of fun to see.
Ocean's
like
13 was buckets of fun.
The fun.
This was not fun.
Well, no, I thought it was.
This
fun.
was awe-inspiring, but it was not fun.
Here's what I'm trying to draw. Like the Oceans is fun in part because it's like, how did they do that? And there's a technical aspect to it, and that's what I'm saying here. Like there's a heist, and it's like, how are they going to do this? And we're going to do this layer to this layer. Like it's just mind-boggling and inspiring. Like it's cool in that way. And so it's not a buddy cop film. It's not like a heroic, warm your heart. It's not Last Flag Flying. It's, you know what I mean? It's a heist movie.
But I'll say this, I'm a little bit inconsistent of a film goer because the problems I have with Inception are also the same problems in Interstellar, but with Interstellar, it like knocks me out every time.
I think Interstellar is much more hopeful.
Yeah.
Just so different movies. I know from a film aspect, there's a lot that you can say about the story and stuff like that. But if we let Nolan be Nolan for a second and like just really engage with the ideas, they're really talking about different things. And I think one idea that I would have loved to explore, the idea of discernment is a really interesting touchstone in this movie because it takes mind defense and makes it literal. The whole reason there's guns in the film is because these people are trying to defend their minds.
Yeah, that was my question. I was like, who's shooting at them? I was like, oh, and then he's like, Cillian Murphy, he's rich. Like he had training to like defend his mind against Inception or Extraction.
Yeah. So like these mental defenses. And I think that that's an interesting concept because like there's something said in the film twice, at the very beginning and the very end of the film, that the most infectious thing in the world is an idea.
That was a little eerie to watch in the era of COVID. He starts talking about viruses at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, and what has killed people about COVID is ideas.
And he says about the ideas, this I thought was interesting, that they can either go on to define you or destroy you. And I was like, that's true. And I think that that's the story of of Cobb and Mal. Like, they can define or destroy. And in both of those, I was like, Cobb got the best of a bad situation. But I was just like, I feel like it kind of both defined and destroyed him a little bit.
Yeah. But put all that aside for a second to just think about the fact that what we let into our minds is serious, right? What we let influence, because here's the deal. When we let stuff into our minds, the stuff in the world plants an idea in your head that you think is your idea. And that's strong and powerful and influential. And we have to, at some level, like, we have a responsibility to steward, because there are great potentials to ideas to do great things and change your life, but also like the other way as well. And so
for sure,
what does discernment look like then in a world where because we don't take ideas seriously enough?
Well, I think the last several years have shown us that they're powerful and they can be wildly destructive,
because people will let anybody entertain them. They'll just come in and for laughs just listen to anything or hear anything or watch anything because, this guy's sensationalistic, whatever. I know he says a bunch of bull crap sometimes, but like, I kind of like what he says. Guard your mind. You have to use some discernment on the things that are the subtext and the things that are going on underneath, and like the ways things are being packaged, because you have one mind and it is yours to keep what comes in and out. And that is a responsibility that you'll give an account for.
Yeah. And I also see that as, even though in this particular film, you have to go through layer through layer through layer. But I think if, I don't know how many people, if we're going off the idea of discernment, actually has that protection. And so that idea is actually, going 4 layers deep without any interruption. And it shows how even if, you're watching a movie, watching a movie, listening to a podcast, reading a book, or whatever it may be, those ideas can sink so deeply, and they don't have to go through as much work if we don't have discernment, because there is no protection. And so it just goes straight down in there, and that idea is incepted, and then we hold on to it for dear life as if it's something. If it's a bad idea, we hold on to it as if it's something worth keeping.
Yeah, and going along with the whole topic of discernment, Inception shows how important community is and other people are for discernment, because Cobb needs people around him like Ariadne to remind him of what's true and what's not reality.
For sure.
And I think there's a direct quote where she says, this is Ariadne talking to Cobb. She says, I wrote it down, if you're going to forgive yourself, you have to confront her, but you don't have to do it alone. And there's such an important
that
piece.
Was great.
And there's, I think that, and this is what many people think as well, this is a popular theory, is that each of the characters represent a different part of the filmmaking process. So Cobb is the director, and of course he's modeled to even dress and look like Christopher Nolan. Arthur Joseph Gordon-Levitt would be like the production designer. Saito would be the producer who's supplying the money.
Interesting.
And Tom Hardy Eames, he's the one who's the actor. He's performing.
Because he changes his appearance.
He literally puts it,
Yeah. And Cillian Murphy would be the audience. And because so often dreams...
That's pretty good.
Yeah, movies. I watched a YouTube video, man. But yeah, the audience... is the ones who are being swayed and changed by the ideas that are presented here in this film.
Exactly.
And he's showing that to have discernment, or to make a movie, or to accomplish something, or the epistemological crisis that we're in now, know what's true and what's false. You have to have a community of people to help you see that, and help you develop that discernment.
That's a pretty good. I think that's the best final word we can have on a substantive cinema on a film like this. That's excellent.
Being aware of that, being aware that's what's going on. If you don't know that you're in that fight, if you don't know that, if you just see things as entertainment and you don't see it as I'm being taught a way to think and feel. And I think they did a good job of talking about how feeling sometimes is the leading way that we process reason.
Nolan's like, none of this feeling stuff. You need to process.
No, I don't think that was the message. I think the message was like, emotion is sometimes the most convincing way to reason, with folks.
Sure. It's a Cillian Murphy thing.
Yeah.
Because when they were planning, he was like, "What negative emotion or positive?" And he was like, "Positive's going to have much more of a take."
It's not like a screw you, Dad. I'm breaking up the company.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, my dad wanted me to do my own thing. I'm going to go do that.
Yeah, that's what Interstellar, going back to what you all have probably talked about in the previous podcast. At the end of the day, it's love.
Yeah.
Yep.
And exactly line there.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah. At the end of this film, the person being incepted actually is you.
Whew, man, best film ever.
So good.
Oh, wow.
Well, okay, not best film ever.
It's Vince's favorite movie. Maybe he can join your...
It's one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
So, substance shout-outs, Mitch. What have you been enjoying or edified by recently, whether it be film, television, books, podcasts, something that you've been consuming and have found value in recently?
Movie-wise, I wrote a piece for the Gospel Coalition on the Nicolas Cage starring movie Pig. You can rent and download that digitally now, and probably see it in a few theaters, but that's been probably my favorite movie so far this year. I think it's plenty substantive.
Looks great.
Yeah, it's really good, and he has a great performance in it.
Really good review, by the way.
Oh, thanks. In terms of books, I've been listening to the Harry Potter audiobooks. Nice. And I am reminded of how great of a story those are. And that'd be a good substantive episode at some point, is the Harry Potter books.
Wow.
And movies. Yeah. And seeing the parallels to certainly to scripture and the grand narrative of the gospel in it has been fun. And I mean, the guy, I don't remember his name, but the narrator is unreal.
He's
doing
phenomenal.
all the voices.
Nice.
And then podcast wise, I've been listening to The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill.
Of course.
By Mike Cosper.
Like everyone is, yeah.
So
yeah. I think somebody told me it was like in the top 10.
It's 20. It's number 20 overall.
It got to number 4 in the US like last week.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And that hit so home for me because I was like a Driscoll disciple, back in before everything happened. And so it's been eye-opening for me to see kind of how I've grown, taking in some of those messages where I am now versus where I am then.
Man, there's so many touchstones to that. Like as I've been listening to it as well. Like I resonate with that, Mitch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And book-wise, I read Jesus and John Wayne.
Very nice.
Which I thought was extremely thought-provoking. And I think that regardless of where you land on the issue of complementarianism, I mean, that is a must-listen. Or I listen to it, audiobook, must-read or must-listen as well. So, yeah, shout out to those.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
That's awesome.
High quality stuff there.
Man, that one keeps getting shouted out, so I'm gonna have to check that one out for sure.
Yeah, we've had several people shout out Jesus and John Wayne, including Trevor.
Yeah,
a number of people shout out Marcel, and I think I did that early on as well. So good stuff is good stuff here. So Mitch, I don't know if we mentioned it on the show, but we talked about this before we recorded. You're getting ready to launch a film podcast of your own.
Oh yeah.
Yes. My buddy Dusty and I are starting a podcast. It's called My Favorite Movie Is ... And we're having on our friends and friend of friends and people that we kind of know about what their all-time favorite movie is. And so it's very dictated by our guest, talking about their relationship to movies, when they first saw their favorite movie and why it's their favorite. So we're looking forward to that.
That's super fun concept.
Sounds great.
I'm looking forward to our recording, a little teaser there.
Yeah.
And I'll certainly shout that out on this show after I record that.
For sure.
Yeah.
It sounds fun.
Where can people find you online?
I'm mostly on Twitter, and I'm at Mitch_Wiley, and I also have a Twitter film account that I run called Film Mitch, and I'm in the process of doing a thread of my top 100 favorite movies of all time. So starting that podcast got me to thinking about it. So my all-time favorite movie, I'll have posted it by the time this airs, is Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Spielberg masterpiece.
Nice.
It's a great one.
I thought it was going to be like top 5 was going to be like Inception,
Interstellar, Dunkirk. What do you all think is Christopher Nolan's best
only
movie?
his 8th favorite Christopher Nolan movie.
Isn't it?
Top 5 of all time.
I like it, and that's how much I like Nolan. Dunkirk is my favorite Nolan movie. That one.
And Dunkirk's my second one.
That one knocks me over emotionally, viscerally. I think it's one of the best war movies I've ever seen.
Well, all right, Mitch. Thanks for coming back. I'm sure we'll have you again at some point.
Yeah,
I sent you my letterbox list of potential futures. So
there's
I
I got to blind spot some of those. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for your time tonight, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks.
Guys, that was Mitch Wiley joining us for a fun conversation on Inception. Hopefully that inspires you guys to go watch it or rewatch it. Check out our links.
That was really good. I'm excited to one day do The Prestige, but I did really like how I think that was a much more profitable discussion than our Interstellar one.
Yeah,
And
shout out to everybody who listened all the way through Interstellar, like all, 50 of you?
it wasn't that bad, but I like also the way that we genuinely got to some real substantive stuff at the end of that there. Sincerely, each of you who has joined our 21 and 21 campaign, we are immensely grateful. And for those of you who are new, that is 21. We're seeking to get 21 $5 a month or higher supporters by the end of the year. We're doing some moves. Vince has got a website that's almost up and running here. We want to get some merch going. We're working very hard to provide you quality content every week, and each one of you who supports us regularly, it is wonderful. Or if a monthly support is not really your style, if you don't want to have to worry about that, you can hit us up on Cash App at $TheSubstancePod. And to clarify, if you want to support us monthly, that's at the anchor link in the show notes there.
We have an Instagram, a Facebook, and a Twitter. And that's at the Substance Pod. So you might go follow. One of the biggest reasons you want to follow us is, one, we got great content, but two, we have great giveaways. If you want to participate in those giveaways, we've been really blessed to have really, really awesome guests, and they've blessed us to be able to do really great giveaways. So if you want opportunities for that, you definitely want to follow us, especially on Instagram and Twitter, and then engage with us. We want this to be a community podcast. We want others getting involved in the things that we're talking about, whether it be about this movie and how great it is, or anything else that we've talked about in the past. So absolutely either engage with us in the comments section or create your own posts about something that you heard and tag us, but engage with us on the socials.
Yeah, if you love this episode, share it, tag us, and make sure to share the love. It always helps if you haven't been roped into writing a 5-star review for us on Apple Podcast. That's a very helpful thing. We're told that it helps people find the show, but like Trevor always says, it's real nice. And you'll get a mention here on the show.
So Vince already connected y'all to the socials, and while you're on there, you're going to want to share your favorite Inception fan theories and ideas and what you think happened at the end and stuff, what's going on with the ring and things like that. Maybe as you're writing out all of your most in-depth analysis, you run into Instagram's character limit, no problem. thesubstancepod@gmail.com is your email address.
There you go.
No character limit there for your Nolan fan theories. And if you have any testimonials or thoughts or instant reactions you want to share, you can actually call our phone line, which is 913-703-3883. Leave us a little voice note there. And if we really like it, we can put you on the show. So for Vincent, Philip, and myself, we thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again next time.
On the Substance.
On the Substance.
What do you think about that?
Dude, I love it.
Peace.
I don't try to have problems with Chris Nolan movies, but the only problem so 5 layers of reality.
My rufflecopter goes swah, 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 swah.
I haven't thought about that. I don't even remember what that's from, but I definitely think about that every now and then.
From Arby and the Chief.
Oh, yes. I always want to say if you enjoyed that. That's where my mind goes every time. Okay.